Hello everyone. This is a presentation from Competitive Energy Services. My name is Keith Sampson. I'm joined with Liz Anderson and Matt Gamache, and we are presenting the PV Consortium of Vermont Supervisory Unions and Schools Net Metering Initiative as funded by the AOE Act 156 grant. We're going to talk a little bit about who is CES, about trends in the Vermont solar market, about the options one has for participating in solar, how a net metering credit works, and how net metering credits can benefit you and your school district. Talk a little bit about how one could manage risk around these, and ultimately what's the next step in the process as participating in the consortium. So CES was selected through an RFP process that was sponsored by the Consortium of Vermont Supervisory Union and Schools. They selected CES to aggregate public entities and solicit proposals for both on and off-site solar generation. Today we're spreading the word, letting those that are interested know about how the consortium works and what we envision the results to be down the road. A little bit about CES. We are energy consulting experts. We started back in 2000 with deregulation of electricity in the state of Maine, and today we have over 700 customers with a $2 billion spend spread across the United States and Canada, but we're very New England centric, and a majority of our customer base resides in New England in the deregulated markets. CES has been spending time in Vermont helping schools and businesses procure heating oil, propane, ULSD, and gasoline in a very customized way through a consortium effect, and that's how we got word of the interest for solar, and we're going to leapfrog off of what we've done in other states and help some folks here in Vermont. CES offers a suite of services. We are a consultant. We offer analysis for renewables, on-site, wind, cogeneration, alternative fuels, LNG conversion systems. We've spent a tremendous amount of time helping those in Vermont look at what's the best type of fuel and do some of the economic analysis and ultimately help them decide, do we stay with biomass, do we stay with oil, do we convert to propane, what's the best fuel for us over the long haul. Again, CES is a procurement company at its heart. That's what started us in 2000, helping people procure electricity, natural gas, fuel oil, liquid fuels, propane, biomass, solar net metering credits, solar PV, energy dashboards, you name it. We've pretty much helped provide that service, and we're beholden to no one. We are serving and working for our customers. The other value that we bring to clients in the New England marketplace is experience with renewables. The owners and partners in the firm have owned and developed projects for wind, solar, and hydro. We know what it's like to develop a project. We know what it's like to permit a project. But most importantly, and the biggest value we bring to this consortium, is our ability to help with the contracting process. The T's and C's, the risk, the lawyer speak, and what's practical in the world of energy is a big piece of what we help vet through and help our clients get to the projects quickly and effectively with a contract that's a win-win for everyone. So this is our experience in New England. We've sited over 70 megawatts. Again, CES is not a developer. We don't own or install anything. We are simply assisting our clients in navigating these difficult markets, helping our clients find the best projects, helping our clients understand the risk, the financial benefit, and then once we've contracted, after we help them with the contracting process, we're there to hold their hands along the way to make sure they receive the credits, to make sure that they get the right publicity, and to make sure the project's a success through and through. Our selection of clients is vast. We do specialize in the education, municipal sectors. We've conducted many RFPs. We understand the procurement laws, the state procurement guidelines, and we believe that the protocol that we're using is one that's very much in concert with the procurement laws for the states that we work in this case Vermont, having done consortium bids for oil, natural gas, propane, etc. We're going to follow a similar model and use those guidelines as we go through the procurement process for the net metering credits. And again, a value to all customers, having said that you've done an RFP. When you select a vendor, you know it's the best price because you've gone through the RFP process. You've attracted the largest pool of developers because it's such a large volume to start. So we've leveraged volume, we've leveraged the bid, we've done an RFP. All that work's then going to be taken care of for you. Again, CES has been on the forefront of this industry, advising our clients. It's the reason we've been so successful in other states, because we got out ahead of this. We believe that's the same case here in Vermont. There's been a fairly robust amount of activity in Vermont, and now with the change in law and the ability to take advantage of net metering, we think that the clients that would be participating in this consortium are at the right place at the right time. Something that's helping this be a good economic win is the fact that solar PV costs have come down in the marketplace, and that's making these projects more lucrative. In Vermont, there's 16 megawatts of solar capacity has been added since 2013. It's important to note that CES, though, has consulted in over 70 megawatts, so CES has done roughly 3 times more solar in New England than all that solar that's been built in Vermont year to date. So CES's experience, along with a very robust and lucrative net metering ruling in Vermont, makes this a pretty good opportunity. We've seen this increase in investment in solar. We know that Vermont has done a study, and the results of that study indicate that the recommendation is for the Vermont continue to develop solar. Recently, Vermont has increased the cap for those that participate, so that there's more solar now being built, and the incentives have improved. One of the key incentives is that RECs generated in the state of Vermont can be sold to other states in New England, and therefore increasing the value of RECs that are generated by developers in the state of Vermont. With a 500 kW cap per site, it's important to note that that we're going to talk about this consortium, and we're going to essentially buy in blocks of 500 for each project, because that's the project size cap. Again, overall capacity expanded in 2014 to all the way up to 15% of each load zone is now the cap size. So that cap will be filled, and there likely will be no more projects incentivized under the current methodology, and therefore we believe that it's important to get projects sited and built prior to the end of 2016 so that they qualify for the federal tax credits, REC programs, and the incentives that are currently available. And again, you can see from this chart that the growth in solar in Vermont has been many-fold, with it capping out in 2013. But now with the raise of the cap and the incentives, we think that 2015 and 2016 will exceed that the installations of 2013. Most of our information comes from the Vermont Public Service Department, and so this brings us to the point where we explain to clients what the best way to participate and the options that you have to participate in solar. One can own and purchase and operate their own solar panel. Buy the panels, hire a company to install them, own them and operate them. Large upfront costs, risk of economic viability, and the SREC values need to be monetized, and the owner is responsible for that. And we're not sure that's where our school system wants to be in the business of selling SRECs. The other opportunity a school could look at would be a power purchase agreement where a third party comes in, owns and operates, and sells back the electrons at a specified price. If those prices are lucrative, if those prices hold up to be lucrative in the future, this could be a decent deal. But again, the devil's in the details of where these solar panels are sited, and there is some risk to the school district as to that PPA price and the structure of the deal. The final way of participating is through a net metering credit arrangement. The options are to either have those on site in front of your meter where the landowner is hosting the actual panels, and then the electrons flow to the utility, and then the host takes advantage of the net metering credits. Or in the scenarios that we most likely think that will be used in this consortium is off-site virtual net metering generation, where panels are located on a solar farm off-site, developer owns, operates, sells the RECs, sells the federal tax credits, and monetizes the electricity generation through a net metering arrangement, which we're going to talk about in a second. This for a school and for a host customer has the least risk. Contracts can be structured in a way that become only financially beneficial. Really, there's only the opportunity risk, but it's important to note that the green RECs are being sold elsewhere, and so it's important for then the host customer to be careful about how much they say they're actually green. But the financial benefit is one that we think is a good idea. It's kind of a no-brainer for schools to participate. This is a short slide that explains the difference between PPA and ownership. Again, these aren't really the emphasis of the presentation, but it's important to note the pros and cons in this presentation on this slide. A little bit more about how net metering works. Conventional metering, the solar panel generates electricity. That electricity either flows to the facility where it's located, or the meter spins backwards and it flows to the grid. So in the scenario number one, the school would be the building. It uses the majority of the electricity. Those panels are located on site, and then that meter would spin backward if there was excess generation beyond what the school could use. In scenario number two, it's virtually net metered. Again, the system is located off-site. The electricity goes to the electricity grid exclusively, to the local distribution company, Green Mountain Power, and then the school then participates through a financial arrangement known as net metering credits, and we're going to explain how that works. There are three parties involved. There's the developer, there's the local distribution company, Green Mountain Power or your local distribution, LDC, and the host, that's the school district. The three steps are: electricity is generated by the developer, the utility pays for that electricity in the form of a credit being issued to the host's electricity bill, so a credit on the Green Mountain Power electricity bill, and then that host customer reimburses the developer for that net excess generation credit, less any discount that's negotiated or a fixed price that's negotiated through what we are trying to do here with this consortium. So again, steps 1 through 3, electricity is generated, generation is delivered in kilowatt hours. That off-site location needs to be in the same utility zone as the host customer, and then the utility then credits for the electricity that's generated. That credit comes on the electricity invoice from the LDC, and then the host pays the developer in some structure. And again, what we're going to talk through here is some likely scenario around a 20% discount, where in the case you'll see in this three-legged stool chart here, the discount is then the savings. Again, this is the third time we show this, just to try to drive it home and show it in different ways. Solar developer generates electricity that's then provided to the utility. The utility generates a credit and issues a credit on the host's invoice from that LDC, and then the host reimburses the solar developer at a discounted rate that's negotiated. That's sort of where CES comes into the picture, and that's why the bid is important. We think that we'll get a better discount rate by having a larger participation and more folks participating. This is a look at what a 20% discount at a 500 kW system would look like in NPV. It's important to note that the solar adder as well as the utility net metering credit rate with a 2% inflation rate is what's used as the base cost. These are tariff rates. We think these are stable rates, and then the discount is then taken from there based on production, based on actual output. The only really change that one could see in this would be the output of the actual solar panels, but we know from experience that a conservative rate of production based on solar sizing has been used in this analysis. At the end of the day, school districts could expect to save $250,000 at the end of the 20-year term, for which that commitment would be realized, and this is the win. There's no upfront cost from the school. There's a 20-year commitment to purchase, to participate and use the net metering credits with that developer. Our recommendation is don't fully expose yourself. Don't sign up for a 500 kW system if your maximum use is around 500. CES will help you with that financial analysis, but our recommendation would be to be conservative. This is great for a high school that probably uses a quarter of what was generated through the 500 kW system. Getting a $20,000 a year stimulus check at the end of each year is a nice thing for a school without a lot of risk, and so we think the larger schools are ripe for participation. The way to minimize risk is to have good contracts. CES has been negotiating these contracts for 3 years. State of Vermont and VISBIT have been working on a standard contract that will go out with the RFP, and we're going to use this as the base. We think that contract will get us to the goal line to get solar panels installed, to get projects flowing and get credits flowing in a short amount of time with less risk to the host, less risk to the developers, and a shorter timeline to negotiate contracts. Negotiating contracts is the most difficult and arduous process in this entire business. And so a couple of the other ways to mitigate risk are all built into the contracts and are shown here on this slide. So what's the next step? The next step is to participate in this consortium being put together by CES. Those who are interested will sign a contract with CES. What that contract says is that CES will act as your advisor on your behalf and send out an RFP and as an aggregate, including your load and the school name, the school address, the school load profile, and we'll send that to suppliers. Suppliers will be given roughly 3 weeks to respond, and from that you will receive the results of the bid. Interested parties need to provide a copy of an electricity bill for each account that they think might be interested in participating. We're going to have you sign a letter of authorization that allows us to get the usage from the utility and a plot plan for any property that would be available if you're interested in having the solar potentially located on your land. Some schools have been interested in having small solar on their land for educational purposes, for display purposes, and still participate in off-site net metering credit for the big financial gain. If you're interested, you need to let us know that up front. The goal here is to get everything submitted by the last week in May, then send out an RFP, and then release that for bids the first week of June, with ultimately getting the bids back by the end of June. Or the middle of June, depending on how things flow. We can't let this drag out too long. We need to get this done in a timely manner in order to get the projects built and under contract prior to the end of 2016. CES will then provide each participant with a bid analysis. Not every school has to go with the same developer. This is a custom a la carte type of approach. What is good for one school district might be different for the other. We're going to tell developers they can participate in any or all of the school districts that they like, and it's truly going to be a menu of options. If the school chooses to go forward, CES will then hold your hand, work through the contracting process, and essentially be your partner in this for the next 20 years. We will then calculate each month's savings, and that's how our payment comes. We're not paid until savings flow. If a school chooses to not participate, in other words, not sign with a developer for a net metering credit arrangement, then they owe us nothing and will continue to move on without that school board. So the only hook is if a school chooses to go forward with a net metering credit project in the next 2 years, whether it's a project that was brought to them by CES or not, they're obligated to pay us our fee, which is a percent of those savings, on a go-forward basis. CES will bring every developer to the table. This bid will be sent to over 100 developers, and CES will communicate, work hand in hand, ask questions, and answer questions for developers so that we get the best result back for each school district and that we get a good, robust participation. We know that developers are out there waiting for this RFP. Developers have told us they're looking forward to us being involved because, frankly, they've been unable to get a lot of good projects going by themselves. They feel that school districts need somebody to hold their hand, need somebody to walk them through the contracting process, and need that assurance, that additional legwork to get this thing done. So we think it's a win-win between CES, the school, and the developers, and developers seem to agree, as well as those that have already participated with CES in similar types of arrangements. This is an example of an RFP bid response for a school district in Vermont that we did as a test case so that we could see what types of results we would get. Ultimately, this was a small project. The opportunities ranged. We got 7 developers bidding on north of 10 different scenarios, and ultimately the customer chose the scenario that had the most financial benefit, as well as with a developer that we knew we would get a contract executed. From this bid response that you see here, there is now a project that's being built that is contracted. So this was a success story, and we're hoping to then use the same model going forward with the consortium. So if anyone has any questions or wants to get in touch with us, the next step would be to reach out to either myself, Keith Sampson, at ksampson@competitive-energy.com, or Liz Anderson, and you can see our phone numbers and email addresses listed here. The devil's in the details. The nuances are important. We're able to talk to you. We're able to help with this presentation with school boards, and we're able to help spread the word. We understand that 20 years is a long time to commit, but we also need you to know that without a 20-year commitment, these projects just don't happen. We also need everyone to know that when this cap gets filled, there will probably be no more projects like this, and therefore it's important that we do this quickly. It's also important to note that everyone is paying for the net metering credits in their bill. The way this program is funded is through everyone's participation through their bill that is then funneled to pay for the RECs and the incentives. So you're paying for the incentives today. Why not take advantage of them and have these savings realized on site? $20,000 a year in real savings per bill, per entity, and without a lot of risk is probably the best way you can participate in a program that you're already paying for every single day. And so I conclude. Thank you for your time.